Warning. The following may contain concepts, ideas, and or reflections unique in nature and not yet approved by government and or corporate entities. This content is for entertainment purposes only and is not intended to stimulate further reflection or to perpetuate additional discourse beyond the scope already outlined by institutional curriculum.
Today's video will be a slightly different format. This is my own personal adventure in trying to withdraw funds from my private pension plan with a previous employer. This is for entertainment purposes only, and I'm not a financial advisor or an expert in this field. This is simply my own experience and feelings on the subject. Last year I quit my job, let's just say over a medical treatment dispute. And around a month and a half after my resignation, I received a letter from my pension plan stating that I now had the option to be paid out my commuted value in a lump sum, or leave it in the plan and receive my windfall 30 years later. How much of a windfall? $152 per month, starting in 2053. I was only paying into the plan for around 2 years. Or receive 31 grand today. Pretty exciting stuff so far. Well, it'll get better, I hope. Now, in different jurisdictions, there are different rules. For the province of Quebec, where I'm living, it goes something like this. Sometimes a pension plan may be paid out with no strings attached. This is called a non-locked-in portion. In other cases, the payout is restricted, and this is called a locked-in portion. In my case, the total payout was roughly 50-50. I believe that my total contributions is what I had unrestricted access to, and the other half, which is locked in, was my employer's contributions with maybe a sprinkle of interest on top. Now, to get the pension plan to pay out anything, I have to be ready to accept both forms of funds, both the locked in and non-locked in portion. The non-locked in is easy because I can just deposit directly into my regular checking account. However, for the locked in portion, it becomes a little bit more complicated. And I would infer that the following is confusing on purpose. A locked-in retirement vehicle is more of a self-directed stock investment account, which may only be accessed at certain times, usually after a certain age. This account is separate from normal banking, and in my case, I went with BMO Investor Line. There are two types of locked-in accounts, a locked-in retirement income fund, LRIF, or a life income fund, LIF. What is the difference? Well, we'll get into that later, but spoiler alert, they simply represent two ways for the bank to screw the average person out of their retirement. After scouring the internet for information on what these two accounts are and what their restrictions were, I decided to set up an LIF. At this point, I probably could have been convinced to go with an LRIF instead, not knowing much on the subject myself. Although, I appear not to be alone in this, because any banking representative I spoke with knew of the existence of these accounts and the general purpose, but none could answer basic questions about the account's specific functions and or differences. As such, I set up an LIF account online around 3 days after receiving the pension plan letter, which is significant because I had 3 months to respond to receive a payout. Everything went smoothly, but I caught my first hitch, which seemed minor at the time. I needed a signature from a banking representative to finalize the opening of my LIF account. So I drove down to my local bank, and I explained to baffled faces that I needed a signature from someone there, so I could mail my account request to the BMO Investor Line head office. Clearly, a signature would not be doled out willy-nilly, and I would require a most prestigious appointment to acquire one of those. A couple of weeks later, I was back at my bank to receive my coveted signature. It was here that I was told I had made a grievous error. The LIF was not meant for my kind. But when I questioned about for whose kind the LIF was meant for, I received no definitive response. Just that it was for someone who is older than myself. How much older? We still don't know, but I'm certain it's a part of the knowledge stored in Pandora's box. During the course of this meeting, I also made the mistake of referring to this pension fund as my money, for which I was chastised that this was not my money, but money that was set aside for me when I became old and decrepit. I suppose it is sort of like the way a child technically owns nothing, but the adults provide for it out of the kindness of their hearts. Although in this instance, I felt more like a foster child to the bank. Although, if this money was not actually mine, then it certainly wasn't the bank's, since I don't remember them paying anything into my pension plan. So what does the bank care if I view this fund as being my money? I suppose they are just looking after the little guy, the global stock exchange. After asking one too many questions, I was told, in the interest of not setting up the wrong account, the banking representative would need to consult an expert and set up another appointment where everything would then be squared away. Funny, because I was told that she was the expert, but apparently this was an overassessment of her abilities. After this encounter, I knew that I would need to do more research on what these two locked-in accounts actually were. A picture of the grand plan was slowly emerging, and I was becoming much more confident in understanding what was really going on. I was no longer a babe in the woods. Now I was a wolf. A hugely deleveraged and powerless wolf, but, still a wolf. I now understood the forest, but I was being hunted by poachers on all sides. Weeks passed and no response from the bank. The clock was ticking, and my phone calls were going straight to message. So another trip to the bank. I had left all of my documents with the bank, and I was now on a mission to retrieve them. Oddly enough, my representative was no longer working for the bank, and I suppose my file was too boring to interest any other representative, so it was never transferred to them. I negotiated with the bank manager, and while she would not return my documents to me, I suppose they were not considered to be my documents anymore either. It seems that everything the bank touches becomes theirs in an instant. However, I would get another appointment. So another couple weeks go by, and I take my appointment with another person who knows nothing about LIFs. So little, in fact, that he doesn't even have my file yet, and immediately tells me that I'll need another appointment with the mythical true expert. I feel that this is an appropriate time to complain. I only have 2 weeks left before my pension fund deadline expires, and I can't afford to wait around for another appointment. Eventually, I get to see the hallowed one, 15 minutes after my anger is vented, and I finally receive my signature, and off the document is sent. Easy, right? One of the documents sent was called an addendum for a locked-in pension transfer to a life income fund under the Quebec jurisdiction. It is the province that I live in. When I received that hard-fought signature, she told me that I had the wrong addendum and needed to fill out a federal one, which she printed off there and I signed. Simple. 1 week later, I received a call from the BMO investor line.
Hello, Mr. Morris.
Yeah, that's me.
I see that you're opening an LIF,
Yeah.
but the addendum you sent for us was for the wrong jurisdiction. So I have to have you email the correct one.
Okay, that's interesting because I had a Quebec addendum filled out, and then I was told that that was the wrong one and I needed a federal one. It's not a big deal, though. Can I send the addendum to you via email? Hello?
Yes, Mr. Morris, did fill out the form and send it to us via email.
All right. Do you have a contact number so I can call you back and confirm that you received it?
Of course, just call the 1-800 number and give them the ticket number I sent to you.
Right, but that 1-800 number is just a general number for all investment accounts. Do you have an extension number?
No, I am sorry.
Oh, that's weird. Well, thanks anyways.
Hello, Mr. Morris.
Yes?
Hello, I am calling you to tell you that to open your account, we require a federal addendum to transfer funds.
Sorry, what? I don't understand. You should have both because I sent the federal one and then I was told I needed to send the provincial one, which I did around 3.
I see here the federal addendum was received a few days ago but we do not have any other documents.
So you're saying that the only thing you have is my online application and the addendum that I just sent you? Is that it?
That is correct.
Because my bank should have sent you the documents around 2 weeks ago. So I was under the impression you already had those.
Mr. Morris, let me put you on hold.
Okay.
Hello, Mr. Morris. Are you still there?
Yep.
Yes, I can verify for sure there have been no other signed documents received by our office here, apart from the one that you just sent.
Oh, okay. Thanks, I guess. So it was around here that I thought it would be a good time to make an official complaint. The pension plan payout deadline had already expired, but I was able to get them to extend the window based on extenuating circumstances. However, with all of this effort, I still felt like I had made zero progress. So I filled out the BMO complaint form with all of the details I've already disclosed here, and this was the response.
Hello, Mr. Morris. I'm the big brain at BMO, and I'm here to make sure that we get your account up and running. I even have my own telephone line, which I sent to you. So if you have any questions or problems, you may call me directly.
Oh, wow, your own phone line.
Yeah. Anyways, I see you're trying to set up a locked-in retirement vehicle to transfer funds from your existing pension plan.
Yeah,
Oh, that's weird. It looks like the account that you were trying to set up was an LIF. That's probably why there was a problem. You can't transfer funds directly from a pension plan into an LIF. You see, an LRIF is the vehicle for saving retirement funds, and once you have reached retirement age, then you will be able to transfer those funds into an LIF account and begin withdrawing from it.
Yeah, I know that. However, in all my research, I never saw any age restriction for setting up an LIF.
Well, you can set up an account, but you cannot transfer funds directly into it from a pension plan. You have to first set up an LRIF. I can close this LIF and begin the process of setting up an LRIF.
So I have to start from scratch?
Yeah.
Well, then no, I want to keep my LIF.
But you can't transfer funds into this account.
Well, if that was true, then why does BMO have an addendum for a transfer directly from a pension plan? It doesn't make sense that they would have a legal document on their website to transfer funds if a person isn't allowed to directly transfer funds.
Well, you misunderstand me. You can directly transfer funds from a pension plan to an LIF, but you have to be of retirement age.
Funny, I don't recall anything specifically stating that there is an age limit to transfer for a transfer to take place. Is this a company policy?
No, Mr. Morris, this is in compliance with provincial law. The bank is only following the law in place set by your provincial government.
Really? Okay, then where is the provincial law which states what age a person has to be to have an LIF?
Listen, I have my own extension line, but that doesn't mean I'm familiar with every province's specific law.
Huh. So you don't know what law the bank is following, but you know that I'm ineligible for an LIF.
You're 34, correct?
Yeah.
So an LIF will automatically start paying you out once it is opened, and you have to be of retirement age to collect from an LIF. You're not retired, are you, Mr. Morris?
No, I'm not. But you're wrong about the LIF. It only automatically starts paying out after the age of 75. And once a payment is initiated, it will continue to pay until the account is empty. Hello?
Right. That's my point.
No, it isn't. Because I can still hold an LIF. I only need to be of a certain age to begin my retirement payments, which I believe is the age of 55. But there is no restriction on having an account at a young age. Here, I'm sending you a link to the Quebec law that specifically states that there's no age limit required to create an LIF. In fact, during the pandemic, they amended the law so that even people under the age of 55 could access their LIF for temporary economic relief. Clearly, people under the age of 55 can hold an LIF.
Here, I sent you a link.
This is a link to Investopedia, and it just describes what an LIF and LRIF are. It doesn't even refer to the specific rules regarding an LIF.
Okay, fine. If you want a link to the law, here is a link to the federal law of Canada.
Oh, what the hell? This just says that the LIF and LRIF accounts are governed by each province. So you're agreeing with me?
No, wait.
No, I'm done. I'm keeping the LIF account. You haven't convinced me. In fact, you've done the complete opposite.
Are you sure you don't want to close your LIF account today?
No. Are you confused yet? So here's the point of this video. Pension plans are a large-scale fraud. I was able to receive half of the money from my pension plan, but a year later, my LIF account still sits empty. And a week ago, I received a call from BMO to inform me that the check from RBC, the bank of my pension plan, had expired, and I would have to call RBC to ask them to resend a new one. If it was optional, I would never put a penny into insurance or pension plans, because that money is my money, and if I never contributed to it, then I wouldn't have to beg to retrieve it. If you just think that I was unlucky, then let me tell you that a good friend of mine tried to take out his pension payout from a previous employer around the same time. However, in his case, they are treating his entire sum as locked in, and he won't see a penny of his money until he's 65. This is not complicated. The banks are simply robbing us. Imagine your 65-year-old mother navigating this behemoth of red tape. I would say that likely 90% of people will never manage their own pensions, and this is incredibly generous. But then why not just wait for the pension to pay you when you retire? Well, because in 30 years, when they finally start paying me a pension, it'll be for $152 a month. And it will take 17 more years for me to be paid out my full 30 grand. In 30 years, $152 will be the price of a loaf of bread. 30 years ago, rent was conservatively 1/3 of what it is today. So in the very best of all possible scenarios, I still would have lost 60% of my value. Ask yourself the question, why do private pension plans exist? Remember, this is not a governmental social service. Think about how many professions have their own pensions. How much money is there? Billions? Trillions? And who is managing this money? And to whom are they accountable? All of this money is on the stock market in one shape or form. If only 10% of the population holds a private pension, and the average total contribution is double of mine, I only worked there for 3 years, then in Canada, people have handed over $90 billion to the banks. The States has 10 times our population, so let's say that they have contributed $900 billion. Where else could a stockbroker find $1 trillion of unaccountable money to shuffle around unmolested? I know that there is some boomer out there who will go, "Well, when I paid into my pension, I'm receiving a generous monthly sum." Yeah, well, you represent the top of a Ponzi scheme, and Gen X is next. Theirs will be a reduced but slightly livable pension. Then myself and the other millennials will be inflated out of our pensions to the point where they will be supplementary at best. Hopefully for the Zoomers, the entire fiat currency system may collapse by then, so that they may experience the hope of a rebuild. I just hope that they don't make the same mistake of falling for the promise of something for nothing. Don't put your stock into a future that may never exist.